The purpose of this video is to cover the selective data recording feature of the DynPro2 software. The purpose of the selective recording feature is to allow you to specify which channels are included in your stored data files that are produced by the DynPro2 software. By default, all channels in your system are included in your data files. However, with the introduction of the selective recording feature, you can now choose which channels will be in these files, opting to leave some channels out if it's not necessary for your reporting and data analysis requirements. In order to understand the selective recording feature, let's briefly review how the DynPro2 system stores and manages test data. When you're running a test, your test data is saved in the sensor box, and the sensor box memory just stores measured data only. This would be things such as analog inputs, digital I/O, frequency inputs, etc. But nothing calculated is actually stored in the sensor box. That's not necessary, as those things can be generated at a later time. When you actually save a data file, there's a two-step process. The measured data that is recorded in the sensor box is first downloaded to the computer, and then that data is converted to an actual DynPro2 data file with the TDAT extension, and that would include all of the channels included, anything that was computed, such as equations and functions, etc. Now, it's important to understand that this selective data recording feature only affects the data that is in the channels and data that are actually in the data file. It has no effect whatsoever on the measured data that is recorded in the sensor box. Future versions of the software may indeed affect that, but right now you're just determining which channel data you want in your data files themselves. To show you how to configure this feature, let's take a look at a very simple mask that just has 3 channels. You can see this column here. This identifies which channels will be recorded, so you can at a quick glance see which channels are going to be included in your data files and which are not. If there's a little red dot, it means it will be recorded in your data file. If there's no dot, it means it will not. Let's go ahead and edit one channel, and you can see how this is turned on and off. In the storage section in the channel dialog, there's a record channel checkbox. So simply uncheck that or check that, and that'll determine whether or not the channel is recorded. And that's also available in the multi-channel edit dialog. Under the storage setting, you can determine as a group whether channels will be recorded or not right here. There's also some convenience features in this editor that allow you to easily see which channels are recorded and not. If you click this column here, it will actually sort all the channels by recorded and not, and that's very useful when there's a whole bunch of channels in the mask. And there's also a search feature. If you click on search on the tab, here you can click recorded to just see the channels in your mask that are recorded or not recorded, or both. So let's go ahead and switch over to the DynPro2 main screen and save an actual data file. So we have at runtime, we have speed, torque, and power all being measured and computed at runtime. And if you remember in our mask file, we said we just want to save speed and power in our data file. So we'll click save. The data is downloaded out of the sensor box and a data file is generated. I'm going to go ahead and select the all channels view here to make sure I'm just seeing every single channel in my data file, and you can see just power and speed are included, torque is not. Now, something to note here, as you're aware, power is computed from speed and torque, and we only have speed in our data file, but we were still able to compute power just fine. So that's something to take note of, is the system is smart and automatically handles at the time that the data file is generated, computing everything that you have specified that you want in your data file. So you don't have to worry about any dependencies there in your equations or anything. Just feel free to check or uncheck any channels that you want recorded, and the system will handle it appropriately and make sure that the proper computations are show up in the final TDAT file. So when do you really want to use this feature? Well, it's particularly helpful if you're working in an application where you're recording thousands or even tens of thousands of data lines and a large mask file that consists of many, many hundreds of channels, 1,000 channels, that sort of a thing. And your reporting requirements, you really only need a subset of all of those channels in your reports. You don't need all 800-900 channels or whatever. In those cases, then there could be a real advantage to using the selective recording system. You'll get much faster data saves when you're saving your data. It makes using your data files, analyzing your data much simpler because you have much fewer channels to sort through, that sort of thing, and various things can be faster. And then finally, the files themselves also will be smaller, which is helpful. To give you some idea of the potential benefits of this feature, here's a graph that is showing two different data file saves. We got a mask file here that when we recorded approximately 18,200 data lines using this mask file. And in one case, this mask file has over 800 channels, and in one case, we saved a data file with those 18,000 lines that had every single channel in it. And the other case, we saved a data file that only needed 100 of those channels in the final TDAT data file. So here's the first stage where you see it's downloading the measured data out of the system. You can see that there's no difference between the two because there's no effect on the sensor box measured data, as we noted before. But when it actually creates the final TDAT file, you can see there's a dramatic difference here. In this case, with this mask file that has so many channels and we're recording so many data lines, it took actually 15 minutes to generate the TDAT file from the measured data when we were generating all 821 channels. But if we only really needed about 100 of those or whatever, then that time drops dramatically to only 22 seconds. And then so the overall final time to generate a data file in this kind of an application went down from 18 minutes to only 3 minutes. So that's a substantial improvement. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're recording large amounts of data and have many, many channels, and you don't really need all of those channels in your final reports, then you may find the DynPro2 selective data recording feature very useful. The DynPro2 selective recording feature was introduced in DynPro2 version 1.7.45.